If you're sitting the UCAT in 2026 or 2027, I've got some important information to share with you. I scored in the 99th percentile and have been tutoring for the last 5 years, with many of my students scoring in the 99th percentile and getting into med. Here's what I've learned and here's what I'd like to share with you. So, importantly, a few quick pieces of advice on what the UCAT is. So, the UCAT is an aptitude test you have to sit to get into undergraduate medicine. It's important because most unis will have a three-tier system. They care about your UCAT, your ATAR, and your interview scores. However, most interviews are given out before the ATAR comes out. And so your interview, whether you get an interview in the first round or not, is based solely on your UCAT. And in the first round is when they give out most of their offers. So by the time ATAR becomes relevant from an interview point of view, most offers are already gone and you're fighting, and it gets a lot more competitive in the later rounds. So a good UCAT will get you an interview, and then you can lock down two-thirds of the medicine entry process independent of the ATAR. Now, the GAMSAT, which you may have heard, is the equivalent of the UCAT for postgraduate studies. It's a bit longer, it's a bit more complicated in its subject material. But the UCAT will get you into undergraduate. And so people in high school or year 12 or the first year of uni will be sitting the UCAT test. Scoring is complicated, but it's scored out of 2,700. There's three main sections that count: verbal reasoning, decision making, and quantitative reasoning. Each are scored out of 900 based on how many questions you get right. So if you get zero questions right, you get 300 out of 900. If you get 100%, you get 900 out of 900. So it's just your raw scores, how many marks, that correlates to what your score is out of 900. This year, a score of 2,400 out of 2,700 or higher would get you an interview at most universities. But it's a bit more competitive if you're applying into state, for example. Generally, you want to be at least at the 93rd percentile, but there are different cutoffs for people who are local or who are from a rural or regional background. Situational judgment is also a part of the UCAT, but it's not scored with the bulk of the sections. So it's important to look into whether your uni uses it and how they do. Generally speaking, most unis don't use it as a first line measure. Now, how do I, as a UCAT test taker and past 99th percentile scorer, how did I manage my time and finish all the questions? The first thing I did was every single set I do, I have it as a log. So what I will have is a set of maybe a Word document where I will basically have each section that I'm practicing, and every day with every section I do, I will write in my scores. So maybe on Monday I would have done verbal and got 20 out of 44, and maybe I guessed 8 questions. And I can see that number that I'm guessing. And so I'm tracking that with time. And my first priority is just to get that guessing number down to six. Not six, down to zero. So maybe I'm guessing 8 at the start, and maybe I can get that down to 6 in 2 weeks, and 4 in a month, and then eventually get that down to zero. So by having that metric right in front of you, it will help you think about practical strategies to cutting down your time. So make a log and set aggressive targets. Whenever someone starts the UCAT, I've never met anyone who can finish all the questions from the moment that they start. Everyone's scores are very poor. I'd be surprised if you can score above 2,000, to be honest, without doing any practice. But with practice and within 1 or 2 months, most people should be able to finish all the questions. The second strategy is skipping and exiting. So for me, if a question looks hard or time consuming, I will just skip it. If verbal reasoning, most passages are about let's say 4 paragraphs. If I get anything that's 6 or more, I'm just going to skip it and leave it to the end. And there's more nuance to that, but if it's maths and the problem seems like it's going to take me a long time, more than 1 minute, I just skip it and I do it last. Exiting is basically a strategy where I've spent a little bit of time on the question and I know I just need to get done with it. So let's say I'm trying to solve a logical puzzle and I do my series of working, and after about 45 seconds, I realize I'm not going to get this. I'm still confused. I will skip it there and move on and come back to it at the end, rather than spending lots and lots of time, spending 3 minutes getting the question right, but then being 2 minutes behind time. So it's important for every question, I have a specific time limit that I'm willing to spend, And I'll either skip it immediately if I think my if I think it'll take longer than that time limit, or I'll exit once I'm approaching that time limit if I'm not close to the question. Then find the shortcuts. So there are lots of ways to get to the answer without doing the correct method. There's ways to get to the answer in maths without doing the proper maths. For example, if I asked you to calculate 796 point let's just do 796 times 37. Most people can't do that in their heads. And most people use the calculator. Now, this is just one step because it's a simple example. But what you can do is you can work out if they end in a 6 and a 7, when you multiply them together, the answer will end in a 2. And you can just look at which of the answers ends in a 2 and pick that. And that will save you the time of having to, go on the calculator and work everything out. So that's a shortcut in quantitative reasoning. In verbal reasoning, sometimes just based on the wording of the answer, you can tell what the answer is. So, if I say like, there is evidence to suggest that this happens, or like some people think that this happens, those answers are much more likely to be correct because of their wording. Soft, objective, more journal-like. And so that can save you a lot of time as well. And so if you have these, 10 to 20-second questions, it will help you keep your average below the allocated time. Now, the hardest part about the UCAT is just dedicating time to it. So this is how I tried to make UCAT a bit more fun. This is the hardest exam that I've done, and I've sat 5 years of med school, and I still found the UCAT harder than all of that. Um, but it is a challenge against yourself. So it's hard, and if I could only, finish half the questions, I'm inspired by that. I'm motivated by that to keep working until I can finish everything and keep working until I can get a good score. I also had a series of friends who are also aspiring to do medicine, and being around them was very important for me because I could see how much time they were putting into it, what sort of scores they were getting, and it sparked some friendly competition. So I think it's important to have a group of other people around you who are sitting the exam. It's challenging if you're from a school or environment where there's not many other people sitting the UCAT, and those people are, I think, at a disadvantage just because you're not around other people. So even through that, I would encourage you to try and reach out, find an online community, even just a group chat of people where you discuss what your scores are. I think that's important. And I viewed the UCAT as a competition against myself. I believe deep down that I'm capable of, scoring in the high percentiles. And if I'm already only scoring 70th percentile when I'm starting or midway through my practice, that's on me to try and work out how I can get to the top percentiles. And so if you believe that you're capable of that top mark, then it all becomes, a challenge, a competition against yourself, a motivating factor to try and get the highest score possible because this is a very, very important test. So finally, what should you do after all this information? How can you actually take this and apply it? So there's three important factors to UCAT success. The most important factor is just how much effort you put into it. No matter how smart you are, you just need like time, and actual raw practice volume is the most important thing. I know people who scored 99.95 and got in the 50th percentile, and that could all have been, avoided. So they're super geniuses, but if they just dedicated, 6 to 12 months of practice, they would have had a crazy UCAT score. So the most important thing is how much you practice. No amount of like anything else will match that. The second most important thing is practicing on a good resource. And so in my experience, almost everyone who gets in uses Medify or MedEntry. If you just think you can get in just using the free material, that is a severe limiting factor. I would encourage you, it's maybe $300 for a year. That is worth more than any tutoring. So number one, how much you practice. I would say for most people, like an hour a day for 6 to 12 months. Number two, getting Medify or MedEntry. And then number three is getting professional help from a tutor. Now, I say 6 to 12 months of practice. To be honest, the standards are getting higher and higher. So if you want to give yourself 18 to 24 months, that's fine. I think for most people, you just need like a time where you're actually committed to doing lots of practice. So if you're going to do 6 to 12 months, you need to do like 3+ hours a day on the holidays, I think, or at least track your scores and stop when you're like happy with your scores. Like if you practice a little bit and you're already at the 95th percentile, you're done, right? You can just leave it. At the same time, if you're doing an hour practice a day for 18 months and your score's still at the 70th percentile, there's something wrong. You need to do more practice. Now, on my third point, I think it is helpful to get professional guidance, particularly when you're starting, so you know what the right strategies are to practice, and then just to have someone to give you advice and accountability. I found with most of my students that they improve a little bit on their own, and then they get stuck here. And the main area where I help with is to get them out of the plateau so that they can then jump that further step. So if you want to start on your own, that's fine. But I'd say when you get a plateau, it's good to get help. So the two main times I think that I'd encourage you to get help are before you start, so you know how to practice, and then when you hit the plateau. The main thing is just working out that this is like a serious commitment. So it's going to like impact your ATAR because it's going to be like taking on an additional like 1 to 2 subjects basically because you have to put in realistically at least 1 hour a day over 6 to 12 months. Um, so it's really hard for the people who are uncertain. If they say, oh, I might want to do med, but I also might want to do like law, like that for those people, that's quite challenging because you're going to put in lots of effort for something that might not even count. For the people who are set on med or dentistry, go for it. You need to do well in the UCAT. So put in that time. Remember, the UCAT is worth as much as your whole ATAR for some universities. Um, but I guess for the people who are still juggling, like, should I do medicine, law, engineering, something else? It's worth just spending the time thinking about whether you actually want to sit this, whether you actually want to commit, hours and hours of practice, to something that will just get you to the next stage. Or whether you appreciate, maybe just getting the highest ATAR you can, and then, you can sit the UCAT in university or, going the postgraduate route. That's an option too. All things that you should consider because once you start, you need to have a good reason why you should keep going. Because it's hard. It's hard to find consistent time to practice the UCAT. If you're planning on sitting the UCAT in 2026 or 2027, please get in touch because that's something I can help you with. I've been tutoring for the last 5 years and helped many students get the highest UCAT score possible and get their dream course in medicine or dentistry. Got a hefty average score improvement, and I'm offering a free strategy call to anyone who clicks the link in the description, as well as I send free resources out every week with some of my best strategies. Spots are limited, and all the courses are run by myself personally and not through a company. And so I encourage you, everything's run by me, and I will give you feedback and correspond with your parents. So everyone's involved every step of the way. I had a series of positive reviews, and last year had multiple students score above 2,450. And so if you're interested, the best place to go now is to click the link in the description. Then we can organize a free call where we can discuss some of all of these factors. Some students have improved their score as much as 800 over the last year, and I'd love to be in touch to show how I can help you and get into that course of your dreams. Again, the link in the description is the place to go for a free strategy call and free resources. Thanks very much, guys.